Have you ever laughed at someone and then realized, only minutes later, that they were far more successful than you could ever imagine? That was exactly what happened to Bobby Harrison, the CEO of a billion-dollar technology company. For years, Bobby had built a reputation as one of the most influential businessmen in the country. He appeared on magazine covers, spoke at international conferences, and traveled in private jets. People admired him. Some even feared him. But there was one thing Bobby had never learned: how to judge a person by their character instead of their appearance. That lesson would come on a rainy Friday afternoon. It began when Bobby's helicopter was forced to make an emergency landing due to severe weather. Instead of arriving at an exclusive investors' conference, he found himself stranded in a small rural town surrounded by farmland. Frustrated and impatient, Bobby checked into the only hotel available. It was old. Simple. Nothing like the luxury resorts he was used to. While waiting for the storm to pass, he decided to visit a local restaurant. The place was crowded. Farmers, families, and workers filled the tables. As Bobby entered wearing his expensive suit, several people glanced his way. He immediately felt out of place. Then he noticed a couple sitting near the window. The man wore worn-out jeans, muddy boots, and a faded jacket. Clearly a farmer. But the woman beside him was stunning. She looked elegant, confident, and beautiful. The contrast caught Bobby's attention immediately. A few businessmen seated nearby noticed them too. One of them chuckled. "No way she's actually with him." Another laughed. "Maybe she got lost." The table burst into laughter. Bobby smiled along. The farmer heard them. But he simply continued talking to the woman. Completely unbothered. The laughter continued. Look at him. He probably spends his days feeding chickens. Meanwhile, she's one of the prettiest women in town. The comments became louder. The farmer still didn't react. Instead, he gently pulled out a chair for the woman and handed her a napkin. She smiled warmly. There was something genuine between them. Something money couldn't buy. But Bobby didn't notice. All he saw was an ordinary farmer. An hour later, a town-wide announcement suddenly interrupted the restaurant. The owner turned up the television mounted on the wall. Breaking news appeared on the screen. A reporter stood in front of a massive industrial project. Behind her were hundreds of workers. The headline read, "Local farmer investe will one sort of de stay, permetto will they arch de say hokos." The restaurant immediately became silent. Bobby looked up. $500 million. The reporter continued. The project was funded by local entrepreneur and agricultural investor Ethan Walker. A large photograph appeared on the screen. The entire restaurant turned toward the farmer sitting by the window. It was him. The same man everyone had been laughing at. The businessmen nearly choked on their drinks. Bobby stared at the television in disbelief. The reporter continued. Walker refused multiple offers from international corporations that wanted to purchase his land. Instead, he used his wealth to build manufacturing facilities and create jobs throughout the region. The room erupted into applause. People stood from their seats. Some even cheered. Bobby could barely process what he was hearing. The man wasn't just wealthy. He was one of the richest people in the state. Yet he dressed like an ordinary farmer. The businessmen who had mocked him suddenly became very quiet. One of them whispered, "I had no idea." Another shook his head. Oh no. But the biggest surprise was still coming. The reporter continued. Walker and his wife Olivia are also responsible for funding children's hospitals, food banks, and educational scholarships across the country. The beautiful woman sitting beside him smiled modestly. She wasn't impressed by the attention. She seemed used to it. Then the reporter revealed something nobody expected. 10 years ago, Olivia was diagnosed with a life-threatening illness. The restaurant became silent again. Old photographs appeared on the television. Hospital rooms. Medical equipment. Long recovery periods. The reporter continued. During the most difficult years of her life, Ethan refused to leave her side. People listened carefully. He canceled business meetings. He postponed investments. He spent nearly every day at the hospital. Bobby looked toward the couple. Ethan quietly held Olivia's hand, just as he had before. The reporter smiled. When asked why he made those sacrifices, Ethan gave a simple answer. The video switched to an interview. Ethan appeared on screen. His words filled the restaurant. Money can always be earned again. He paused. But the people you love cannot be replaced. Nobody spoke. Several customers wiped tears from their eyes. Even Bobby felt something shift inside him. For the first time, he realized how wrong he had been. He spent his life chasing success. But this farmer had discovered something much greater. Purpose. Loyalty. Love. As the interview ended, the restaurant erupted into applause once more. This time, everyone stood, including Bobby. After several moments, he slowly walked toward Ethan's table. The room watched. Bobby extended his hand. I owe you an apology. Ethan looked up. For what? Bobby lowered his eyes. For judging you before I knew you. Ethan smiled. It happens. No, Bobby replied. It shouldn't. The farmer stood and shook his hand. Then he said something Bobby would never forget. The easiest thing in the world is judging someone. He paused. The hardest thing is understanding them. Those words stayed with Bobby long after the storm ended. Months later, when people asked what the most important business lesson of his career had been, they expected him to talk about investments, profits, or billion-dollar deals. Instead, he always told the story of a farmer who dressed simply, loved deeply, helped thousands of people, and taught a billionaire CEO that true success isn't measured by what you own. It's measured by who you become. Because at the end of the day, money may earn admiration, but character earns respect, and respect lasts forever.